Welcome back to another episode of Swine Versation. Swift expansion, success, and key learning with Adam Walters from Tosh Farms. Welcome to the program, Adam.
Thank you.
We had you on our roundtable a couple of years ago. We're happy to have you back in this chair. So you're the finishing manager at Tosh Pork. Where did you grow up and how did you get involved in the swine industry?
Well, I grew up on a small hog farm in East Tennessee. It was probably 15 minutes outside of Knoxville, and my dad had graduated from the University of Tennessee, and it was name of the farm was L&W Landrace. He was in partners with Professor Ed Lidval from the University of Tennessee, and the big thing that we were working on then was genetics and stuff with the landrace breed. And I was pretty young at the time, so I didn't have much interest in it. But we were always, I guess, the idea of hard work and working together as a family, and sort of the culture of enjoying what you're doing and knowing there's not really a bad job on the farm as long as you're having fun at what you're doing. And I guess probably early 90s, we got out of the hog farm and bought some dairy cows. That was definitely an experience. Dairy cows are a lot different than pigs. But from there I went to college at Emory Henry College in Southwest Virginia. And I was going to play football and get far away from the farm, not have to worry about going back or anything. And freshman year I ruptured a disc in my back, and then that was all over with. And so, throughout college and stuff, I had some surgeries. And once I graduated, I was going through a few more back surgeries. And during that time, my brother had started at Tosh probably in 2000 or 2001. And he got his master's at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And so he was talking about Tosh and, really enjoyed it. And my parents moved to that area, and during that time, I was a burden on them because I couldn't take care of myself, but recovering from a couple of surgeries, and moved down to West Tennessee. And I started talking to Jeremy more about Tosh, and I had my final back surgery. Hopefully, it was the final one. And whenever I was cleared to work after that is the day I started Tosh Farms, and we've been there close to 17 years now.
And the back's holding up, Adam?
Yeah, it's not that bad. It's one of those things, if you don't, keep your mind off of it, it's not that bad. You get used to it after a while.
So your brother worked for Tosh, and that was an integration for you. Did you think you'd end up back in the pig business, or?
No, that was not in my plans at all. Whenever I graduated from Emory, I worked at a planning district commission for a few years in Marion, Virginia, and I'm working on income surveys and working with Habitat for Humanity, bringing in some housing and water grants for low-income areas. And I was interesting work, but and I had to move back to Knoxville, and then it just sort of lined up. I tell everybody it chose me, and I'm happy where I'm at now, and I love what I do. And from being on sports teams and stuff growing up, the way I look at our management team is sort of the same idea from it. We all work together and have the same goal, so you still get to build those relationships.
So we got a few topics to cover there. So starting wean pigs on feed, the importance of first day in the wean to finish barn, Adam. Do you have any strategies over the last 15 years for wean to finish?
Oh yeah. That first day, you want to have everything set up. My managers go through a pre-filled checklist. Big thing is having your barn, have it, the heat up, preheat it. Our set temp on day one, 78 degrees. And in wintertime, we'll have brooders, feed mats down, and you just try to create a stress-free environment, because that day, those wean pigs are being weaned from the sow. They're thrown on the truck, then they're delivered to our farm. And, from there, that's probably the most stressful day they'll have in their lives. So, our job is to make sure when they hit that door that, they have everything they need. And, we get them placed, we sort through them, and, then they don't have many more challenges after that. Try to just set it up so that you can manage the stress, keep it as low as it possibly can be.
So day one, it's all about managing the stress. What about like a routine after that?
The we have our wean-to-finish is broke up in basically 3 different departments. We have what we call our baby pig techs, which are basically nursery managers. But we always advertise it as baby pig techs because we get all kinds of applications. It seems like the way we advertise the job, it makes it easier to fill the positions. And the first 6 weeks, they're with those baby pigs, going over the protocols on how to start them off on feed, the medication, how to give the shots. They're going through, and the big thing they look at is teaching our contract growers the protocols. And I always try to remind them, you're not telling them what to do, you're teaching them what to do. So we try to spend a lot of one-on-one time there with the contract growers, going over, setting everything up, and going over the protocols and explaining why they're doing this. And one big thing I forgot to mention on the front end, outside of the stress, is make sure you have plenty of access to water. They come in, they're dehydrated, so you want to have plenty of access to water for everybody to get started off. And the quicker they can get a drink, the quicker they'll start eating. And the challenge there is getting everything started on feed as fast as you can.
So how is your wean to finish management team structured, Adam?
We I guess it's probably been right when I started. Jimmy made the decision to switch over to wean to finish, and so in the general finishing that we had before, your finishing manager would they would handle the pigs coming in, sort them out, and count them and place them. And then you would have what our regional managers do now. They have a certain number of farms that they manage, and then they would also go through and select the pigs to sell. So your managers, they weren't really I guess you would call a specialist in one area. And as we grew and got further into wean to finish, we realized what worked best for our system is to break it up into 3 different departments. So I mentioned earlier, our baby pig techs, they handle the placement of the weaned pigs. They go through and sort them out by health. And the first 6 weeks, they'll spend a lot of time there at the farm going over protocols with the contract growers as far as starting them off on feed and medication, and just building that relationship there on the front end with the growers and educating them. And from there, we have our regional managers. And I guess that's probably the most normal job that we have in the wean to finish compared to other setups. They have, say, 15 to 20 farms they visit every week. They'll write up reports. They go over maintenance, pig health, and making sure that they're keeping up with documentation as far as death loss and feed inventories, and just a lot of the day-to-day communication with the contract growers. And each one of them, they'll have probably around 80,000 head is where they're at right now that they manage every week. And I try to keep all the I guess the hard conversations with that group, because they're usually a little bit more experienced and trained better to handle those situations, because not everybody's cut out to handle some confrontational conversations. And as the pigs get older, at 100 days placed, we'll come in with a set of scales, pick one pin out of each barn, and weigh that pin, come back right before we start selling, right around probably 3 weeks, weigh that same pin, and that goes into a spreadsheet, and it'll help project the days when we start selling. And the guys who do the weigh-in, they also come through and individually mark all the pigs that we sell to Swift. And their farms are set up a lot like the regional managers, where they have a certain number of farms that they're responsible for.
That segues nicely into training new managers. So pig experience, Adam, versus no pig experience. What is your experience in that realm of training?
Well, where we're at, West Tennessee, you don't have many people that are experienced in a wean to finish pig care. So, most of the time I deal with people right out of college that are just eager to work with animals. And, I would say if I have to pick one or the other, I'd probably go with somebody who doesn't have any pig experience, because a lot of the farms in the industry do stuff very similar, but it's the small details that separate all the farms. And, at times it seems like you're trying to, not everybody always picks up the right thing. Sometimes they'll pick up some bad habits or something. You're trying to eliminate that process. But I always tell everybody, don't worry if you don't have any experience with pigs. That's what we're here for. We'll teach you, we'll train you. If we hire a new manager in, the training period is 5 weeks. And during that time, depending on what department they're hired into, if it's a baby pig tech, that manager will spend the first 5 weeks one-on-one every day. We call it the buddy system, where they're riding along with the manager and going over their daily process, and just learning what all they're looking at and what they're doing. And we try to split up so that they spend that time with every manager we have in that department.
So to you, it's about the person. If the person wants to learn, you guys have a good team and a good system to integrate the person with the right mentality. Now, do you have an example of somebody with no pig experience on how you've molded them into success?
I would say half of my management team. I've gotten a lot of people out of University of Tennessee at Martin, and not many of them have had any pig experience, but they're interested in agriculture. And if they're wanting to stay in West Tennessee, Western Kentucky area, we're the only chance they got. But a lot of it goes back to the person's attitude. If you're willing to get in there, give 100%, it doesn't matter what the job is, and you're always positive about what you're doing, and that makes a huge difference in the attitude and the energy that they bring. Having somebody positive, everybody wants to work with, and because it's not easy work, and not everybody really enjoys it, and all your contract growers, they have something else they'd rather be doing. And so, how well you can communicate with them and work with them and make it an easier work environment, you can get that buy-in to where the contract growers are more willing to do what we ask and follow the protocols.
So when we talk about culture, where do you think it starts? And then how do you continue to create a positive atmosphere?
Well, I would say this is probably for anywhere. It has to start with the owner, and at Tosh, it starts with Jimmy. And it's just the culture of, we're always looking ahead, trying to figure out what's the best strategy. And he has a very good business mind, and that's how we've gotten where we're at. But and then from that, it's just the family atmosphere. You can run into him every day, and there's not really a disconnect from the owner to the people at the farms. And then that comes down through my boss, Jay Oliver. He's the production manager, and it's you earn your freedom to make your own decisions, and if you want to change something, you run it by everybody, and then the process starts in the barns. And how you interact with everybody every day, how you carry yourself at the farms, how you talk about Tosh, and your attitude about what you're doing, all that carries the culture down to the contract growers. And as far as building it, it's every day. It never stops. You have to consciously be trying to improve on it every day. And one big thing is you look at the golden rule, treat others the way you'd want to be treated. And, there is some truth to that, but you also got to be aware of how other people want to be treated, how you can interact and talk to them and work with them, because, getting to manage other people, the big thing is learning how they learn stuff and how they want to be treated. And a lot of that has to do with the culture we have at Tosh, because, everybody has a fair chance, and we do a lot of promoting from within. So the opportunity based on how well you perform to move up is very high. And that goes along with the quick expansion we've had over the last decade. There's a lot of jobs opening up, not just in my department, but in other departments at Tosh, because of the quick expansion we're having. And, those opportunities would already be filled at other hog farms where they're not growing as fast as we are. So that's a good selling point whenever I bring new managers in, is that, these other opportunities are going to be there and you don't want to miss out on them, because, when that door opens, you want to go through it. You don't want to miss the opportunity. So whatever you put into the job, you'll get out of it.
What are a few of the keys, Adam, for the rapid rise and expansion? So I know you guys have been growing rapidly. You just mentioned it here. Are there a few keys to that?
I would say what has enabled us to be able to grow at that speed. One will be our construction crew and our concrete crew. We have a lot of H2As that come in that run our concrete crew. Those guys are phenomenal. And without them, we wouldn't be able to expand and do the construction that we do. And along with that, our feed mill, we have our own feed mill, and so we feed a lot of byproducts too. Sometimes little Debbie's, and sometimes that stuff can cause flowability problems coming out of the feed bins. But stuff like that is, whenever you're going through hard times with the market, like what we've had this year, it still, gives us the opportunity to grow and to sort of control the cost that maybe not all the farms in the industry can handle. And, I'd say the byproducts and stuff we feed is, probably the biggest reason we can continue to expand like we are.
Is there more expansion ahead, Adam, or have you kind of hit the ceiling?
We have one sow farm right now that we're remodeling, and it should be finished maybe next summer. And then there'll be one more after that we'll remodel, and we're looking at building another sow farm. I think right now we market around 1 million pigs every year, and the last projection I heard, by 2027 we'll be marketing about 1.4 million.
Okay, well, keep up the good work. So managers and contract growers buy into the Tosh quality standard. So what is the standard?
That goes along a lot with the culture. Having our managers trained to where they understand why we're going over these protocols, and being able for them to teach the growers the quality standard. They have to be actively engaged in their job. And I would say that's probably one of the hardest things that we face outside of being able to have employees, is keeping them actively engaged in our job. And, some of that goes back to what I was talking about, us continuing to grow where we have more opportunities for people to move up. So that will keep everybody more engaged, because they know that, what they put into it, they will be rewarded for it. And so they can take that and, they're excited and they want to work with the contract growers, and, they can teach them so that they understand that, we all are part of Tosh, and, not one job's any bigger than the other. We all depend on each other, and just spending that time with them and building that relationship in the barns. And if my managers are not actively engaged, then there's no way that they can get the contract growers engaged. So that's something that we constantly got to be looking at. How do we, try to make the employees aware that we have to be actively engaged in what we're doing.
So a day in the life at Tosh, what would your routine persist of?
Well, hopefully, it, lots of times it seems like you're just putting out fires. But you know, as far as my schedule, I would say maybe 2 days a week I would be in the office. Wednesdays we do a lot of the scheduling, preparing for the next week for all the wing pig movements, all the top hog sales, and then outside of that, I try to hit up the younger farms, check and see how the baby pigs are doing that just came in, making sure that we have proper heater placement, mat placement, and checking on feeder adjustments, and just making sure that everybody's following those protocols and keeping up with it. And now I do a lot of whenever I visit the farms, I'm not really trying to point stuff out to the contract growers, but it's asking about their families, how they've been, and just continuing to build that relationship.
So we touched a little bit on training new managers before. So specifically for manager development, I know there's a quote that you had, pigs are easy, people are hard. So what does that statement mean to you, Adam?
Well, I think with any job in management, it doesn't matter if it's a hog farm or if you're at a factory, or like even if like a head football coach or somebody, if you're managing people or you have a team that you're over, you know, all the pigs, they're not going to lie to you, or they're not going to cut corners. They're pretty straightforward, and they're with the people. You have to learn how to interact with every one of them. Spend that time to get to know them and see how they learn and how they interact with people. We have quarterly meetings with my whole department, and I would like to meet more than that, but just because of how spread out we are, and it seems like quarterly works out pretty well. The first quarter this year, I divided people up. I would take somebody who's just been a manager for 6 months and put them with somebody who's been there for 20 years. And so they could sit down and talk to that manager. How are you still engaged with being at Tosh in the same role for 20 years? Then they could ask the same thing of the person who's only been there 6 months and sort of see what they have in common and what the outlook is. And, just trying to learn something from each other, because we're not always in the same place. And so whenever I get my managers together, I try to keep it interactive and build it on them getting to know each other. Because the more they get to know each other and know somebody's process has been at Tosh for 20 years, somebody that's just starting there, that'll give them an outlook of what the 20 years down the road could look like for them, as far as expansion and the opportunity to grow. And just understanding more about the opportunities that they have at Tosh.
So are people hard in every industry, or is there a correlation to people and pigs?
I would say I know I enjoy working with pigs because we choose to be around pigs a little bit more than we do humans. And so I think that's one reason why maybe it could be harder for us, just because that's not our strength. If my strength was sitting down and managing, working with humans all day, every day, which it is, but not to the extent it is with the pigs. So it's basically you're trying to work on your weaknesses and build them up. I think everybody who chose this industry, their strength is working with the pigs. That comes easy.
Yeah.
And that's the learning of protocols, how to interact with the pigs, and that management. We all pick that up really fast because that comes easy to us. But the management of all the different personalities, all the different people that you work with, you have to step back and look at how you're interacting with these people, and understand that each person you come in contact with, you have to approach them differently. You have to talk to them differently. You have to put the effort in to understand, sort of like what they're wanting to get out of Tosh, and lay out the responsibilities and the goals, and set all that out there so that they're aware of what we expect out of them, and just keep everybody up to date on what we're doing and why we're doing it. And with anything you do, working with people is always going to be the hardest thing, just because it's constantly changing. And I know some days I can be great to work with, and then I'll have a bad day, and then nobody wants to work with me. I think we all go through that, and we just have to understand that.
How are you developing to the leader you are, Adam?
It's a constant development. Every day. Whenever I'm at the farms, I'll ask every interaction I have. I'm asking the person what they think about what they're doing. Do you understand the purpose behind what you're doing? And I think the biggest part that I can look at is having these managers who are there, who are actively engaged, and everyone's doing their best. Is just giving them support, knowing that we see what they're doing, and we understand that you're in this position and you have the opportunity to move up, or we recognize how good you're doing. And that even goes with the contract growers. Excuse me. We try to keep acknowledge the growers quarterly with spotlight growers and stuff like that. And just I think lots of times whenever you're going through and going over stuff that you've seen, and you're looking at this person needs that better feeder adjustment, we need to look at this, but we always forget to point out the positive. We always talk about the negative, so keep a lot of the conversations positive, and point out what everybody's doing. I know I'd rather have a conversation where somebody's pointing out the stuff that I'm good at and what we're improving on. And I think if we focus more on that, you can get more buy-in from people you're working with, because just having a positive atmosphere and going into stuff, it's everybody wants to work with you better. It's just a better working environment.
So how to develop a great manager? Is it training, culture, and environment? I know we touched on that, but what's your take on that?
I think environment is huge, because a lot of it is not just from me, but from other managers they come in contact with. So, there's multiple divisions at Tosh. I think we have around 550 to 600 employees. So, that good environment between each department and other divisions with other managers, everybody respecting each other and knowing that we're all working for the same goal. And, the managers that we're bringing up can see that, and they see how every department respects each other. And so, that helps to give them support, and they know that, everybody's there to help them out, to see what they need, to make sure that they have the tools that they need to be successful.
So let's kind of wrap on a hot topic, Adam. What's your biggest concern in your business or the swine industry, and how can that potentially be turned into a positive?
So I think we touched base on this a little bit earlier, talking about employee engagement. And that's a huge one, but I think we'll take a step back from that and just being able to keep a full staff. It seems like every year it's getting harder and harder to find people who want to work in the swine industry. And so I think one way that, we'll combat that in the next 10 years is technology in the barns. Maybe some cameras and stuff, keeping up with the pig movement, and, better sensors and stuff on the feeders, try to implement the technology that we have that we can use. I think that will increase a lot over the next 10 years, just because we'll have to, because we won't have that labor force that we're struggling to keep right now. And so I think that will be the biggest issue, in how we can implement some more technology and stuff that's starting to come up, and manage that better.
Well, Adam Walters, thanks for joining us today.
You, Jim.